Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to the Artist Talk for To Witness, To Experience, To Reflect. I'm the curator, Cheyene.
Hello, good evening. My name is Flores.
My name is Sanah Brown Bowers.
My name is Taj Pasquier.
Vanessa López.
NJ.
My name is Lina Malik.
So this show is a culmination of a class we all took at the Maryland College Institute of Art.
Maryland Institute College of Art.
Thank you. Which was called Blackness as a Portal of the Baltimore class. And so I would just like to ask Vanessa López a little bit more about what she was thinking about when creating the class and how she got the class.
And I'm using this mic for that, right?
Because I could really just project.
You can also just project.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Yeah, I feel like I can actually hear you better without the
Yeah, the echo. So like Cheyenne said, this exhibition was a culmination of a class that was called the Baltimore Course, Blackness as a Portal. And so at MICA, a couple of years ago, some graduate faculty and graduate students, specifically graduate students in the community arts program, had advocated for a course focused on Baltimore. And so they were like, we're coming to MICA, we're in Baltimore, we have no context of where we are. And so this sort of shell course was created that was called the Baltimore Course. And the idea behind it is that each semester a new faculty member would teach this course and bring their own spin on it. And so, I don't have time right now. That was 22. So, winter of 22, winter of 22, I reached out to MICA. I was on sabbatical, so I teach at MICA, teaching the Masters of Teaching program. And I reached out to MICA. I had been on sabbatical, and as part of my sabbatical, I did a Fulbright to Mexico. And in Mexico, I was looking at the African culture within Mexico. And if you've ever done Fulbright Hayes, part of the contract of Fulbright is that you do some sort of community engagement within your institution. And so I had reached out to MICA, and I actually wanted to just do a workshop. Like I was like, hey, I want to do a workshop with some graduate students. And they were like, well, do you want to teach this course? And so I am Dominican American, first generation in the United States. I have been in Baltimore for about 22 years. And so I've been thinking a lot, as a Dominican, if you know Dominicans, more often than not, Dominicans do not look like me. I'm an anomaly in Dominican culture as a light-skinned Dominican person. And so I've spent a lot of my life thinking about Blackness. Like, what does it mean to be Black in this shell? What does it mean to be Black in the United States versus the Dominican Republic? And so going to Mexico was just another lens into Blackness. Like, what did it mean to be Black in Mexico? And obviously, I thought a lot about Blackness in Baltimore. So before I came to MICA, I taught public schools in Baltimore. So I taught Baltimore City Public Schools. So I devised this class that was called Blackness as a Portal, really looking at 3 port cities and how Blackness manifested differently in each of these port cities. So we looked at Baltimore, Maryland, we looked at Santo Domingo, the Dominican Republic, the Dominican Republic as a whole, and then Mexico. And honestly, I mean, if you're teachers, it was like the first time I taught the course, I put way too much shit in the class. Everybody told me that. It could have been like, probably a year long. And I think it was just a culmination of a lot of my own personal research and exploration. And so we had speakers that came, artists and speakers that came from Mexico. I got a grant to bring in a couple of artists, to bring in a couple of scholars. We had folks that came down from New York, academicians, that spoke about the Dominican experience. We did a lot of site visits, well, not a lot. We did a handful of, I think, pretty impactful site visits in Baltimore. And the course was part historical, contextual, and then also like a somatic experience. So what I think happens sometimes when we talk about race is like we theorize it and we don't see it as a real embodied experience and what it means to like walk in these bodies and experience these bodies. And I think also just like the trauma of that body. And so I wanted to bring in what felt to me like practices to like move through that trauma. And so part of what we experienced as a class was different practitioners that came in and had us work with different modalities. So like, you know, somatic exploration in a place, like what did it feel like to be in that place and feel the history of that place? And that was Marcela B. Gomez who came, and you know, what did it feel like to draw from ancestral knowledge? So that was Mama Rashida. So those were sort of like the pivots, the pillars of the class, and then we were going to create something, and as a group, they wanted to make some work, so that's what we did.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
You're welcome.
It was a really impactful class. I can only speak for myself, but it was good to finally find a place where you were having those conversations, especially in a predominantly white institution. Being able to actually have a conversation of what Baltimore is outside of the harmful stereotypes, outside of what you see in the media, and outside of what you even might see depicted at MICA itself. So thank you for offering the course and for teaching it the way that you did.
Thank you, thank you. I mean, you know, one course is not enough. It's not enough. And again, in full disclosure, I think I packed a lot of things into that class. But I think a lot of the heart of the class was how everybody showed up. You know, even if I think about like the first class, like I did a lot of like really experimental shit. Like, you know, like I was like, here, sit with a friend and ask them this same question over and over again on like class number 1. And I mean, y'all rolled with me, so I appreciate it.
Now I'd like to like open up the questions to the artists.
Wait, before we get there, can you, so Cheyenne, so it was a graduate level course and everybody came from different departments. And so there were folks that were in curatorial practice, painting, photography, all the departments. And at the end, when we decided we wanted to put on an exhibition, it was like, well, what's everyone's contribution? And so Cheyenne, as a curatorial practice student, you know, was like, I'll curate the show. So could you tell us a little bit about, I guess I want to hear first about like why that decision to come to step into that, because there were other people that were also curatorial practice students who didn't say, you know, I'll lead. So why lead?
I guess for me, I wanted to step into the curatorial role because I'd seen the work that my classmates were doing, and I'd seen the holes that they were leaving in the way that they were describing their work. And I had seen where I could help in a way as a curator rather than how I could help as an artist myself. And I think also it helped me hide some insecurities I was having as an artist by stepping back into the role of a curator. I then didn't have to create work myself. So it was like two reasonings, but ultimately it led to me having very rich conversations with my classmates and getting a more in-depth understanding of their practices outside of the class. And I think while curating the actual exhibitions itself, I thought a lot about one of the first assignments that we had, which was to share a story of Blackness and when we first became aware of Blackness. And so going into every single studio visit, that was something I asked, and that was something we talked about, while understanding that there were Latinx people in the class, and that there were white people in the class, and that there were Black people in the class. It wasn't fair to just go at it from the lens of Blackness, but to really understand how whiteness is positioned next to Blackness and how Latinx experiences are positioned next to Blackness. And with that, it fed into the way that I curated the show. I didn't want it to just be this artist on this wall, this artist on that wall, this artist on this wall. I wanted the art to have a conversation. And so at Gallery CA, when curating, I created a hallway type of thing that would center in on Sanah's piece that was talking about Black masculinity and Black joy within men. But I paired it next to Mama Salah's piece that you can only see when you go into a certain angle, which was talking about mass incarceration and picnics and the lynching of Black people. And it was a conversation that we had about, yes, there's joy, but there's also pain. But you can see the joy when you can see the pain, and you can see the pain when you see the joy. I put Taj across from Daniel because the two conversations they were having about their identity complemented each other, as well as the colors in the paintings. As a curator, I also have to think about how it looks visually. But with MJ, we decided to hang her work on a clothesline because it was about family, and it needed to have that familial touch. So the frame really added, it's something you would see in your grandmother's home. It's not just something cold on a white wall. With Mama Salah's piece down south in the UB Blake Gallery, I decided to put it up higher because it changes the connotation and the meaning of the work. When you're witnessing this traumatic experience from up high, you're now the observer rather than looking down on it. So it was just really talking to my classmates, understanding where their souls lie within the work, and aligning it with my curatorial practice, which is always to service the artist and to show the artist in the best light and to push them to show their work in the best light.
So do you think putting on a show is not a work of art in and of itself?
That's something I'm having to think about right now, because in the curatorial world, there's a lot of discourse, whether a curator is an artist or should a curator be
I'm not asking what the world thinks, I'm asking what you think.
I was getting there. I see myself as an artist in the way that I curate. And so right now I'm walking the line as at what point does it become curation and at what point does it become a collaboration between me as an installation artist and the artists themselves.
What would you say was for you the most surprising thing about this experience, putting on the show in the class? And what would you say was the most challenging thing? I could ask you questions, y'all, just so you can
I guess the most surprising thing was just the openness and the willingness of my classmates, because for a lot of them, this was my first semester ever meeting them, and they opened their studio to me in a way that I hadn't had other artists open. They were willing to have hour-long conversations, because if anyone's ever had a studio visit with me, it can either last like 10 minutes or 6 hours. Like, I can talk. And they were all willing, and they were giving very rich conversation, and it was a give and a take, and it was just very warming and humbling in a way to know that these people trusted me, only knowing me for that little amount of time. I would say the most challenging part was getting the artwork from my classmates at a reasonable time, since it was a part of a class. It's not like I went to them with work already made. It was like, oh, I'm making this for this class. And so it was like a week out from actually installing the show, and some of the art I was just seeing for the first time. And so in that way, it was a little bit challenging to actually know how the show is going to look when it went up. So now I'm gonna open up the questions to the artists. This is for everyone sitting on the panel. Can you talk a little bit about what drove you to make the work that you did for the course? Anyone can start.
I was gonna say the most challenging thing was getting that arch right on the wall.
That was Todd's challenge, yeah.
Okay, sorry. What was the question again?
What led you to create the pieces that you did for the course? Like, what inspired it?
When we were given the assignment to create a piece of artwork, it kind of already fell in line with what I was creating in my work. So I just, again, I already had the idea to work on video, do something with video, because I haven't done that before, so I wanted to explore with video. And I wanted to create a video about Black men and a painting about Black men. Most of my paintings are representing joy in the Black family, because a lot of the artwork that sometimes people create can leave one kind of maybe depressed or feeling hopeless after they encounter it, and I don't want people to feel that way when they encounter my work. I want to show them the other side of the Black experience, which is joy. So my idea was to project a video that I created of Black men that was images, and I had a specific song that I wanted to overlay the images to. So I created the video, and then I wanted to project it on top of the painting. So the whole process of me making the work, I didn't know what it was going to look like because I had never done that before. And then it was creating the painting and creating the TV box screen. So it was a lot of different steps to make the piece, and then also building and assembling the TV box frame. But my inspiration was definitely, again, just falling in line with my other work, which is paintings of Black families and Black masculinity. And most of my paintings have African American men and children in them. So yeah, I hope I answered it.
Yeah, so I remember, Sanah, that you were influenced by a specific artist. So maybe you all can also just talk a little bit about, so basically everyone did art-based research, right? Where you're creating work based off of research. So maybe you could hit on, either writing or artists that were influencing your thinking while you were making.
Okay, yeah. So we had the Blackness is a Gaze. What was the name of the book?
Oh, Black Gaze.
The Black Gaze book. Okay, sorry. The Black Gaze book. And Arthur Jaffa was kind of my inspiration for my piece. I really felt like I connected to his artwork because growing up in New York City and Queens, I grew up, my brothers were like into hip hop music and Wu-Tang Clan, and so when I saw his videos, it kind of connected me to like the dance and the music and all of that culture. It reminded me of the way I was raised in New York. So I really felt led to do something similar to that, but to put my own spin on it. So I like to use a lot of text in my artwork. Just even in my paintings, I love combining text with my stuff. So I wanted to overlay a lot of words that were affirming words to kind of carry through the piece. But definitely Arthur Jaffa was like, I watched a lot of his videos and kind of got inspiration from the way that he edited his footage. Yeah.
So I think my work, prior to coming to MICA, I did an MA in philosophy. My areas of research are aesthetics and post-colonial thought and theory, critical theory. So research comes natural to my work, and I pull a lot from that. But for me, my work would lend, the research that led to this project was looking at the movements and problematizing how we identify migration and immigration in Latin America and in the US. So by looking at the movements of itinerant workers, especially Chinese and Asian and Black communities within both sides of the border, and looking at how these various communities not only understand the medium of painting, but painting as a communication or as a hierarchical tool. And so how can I use those languages to then tell these stories from these various communities? So that's what, for me, lended into further developing the research and start looking into how can I express these lived experiences within the border and the working class